Are you ready?
Starting now?
Well, now you just messed it up, you knob. God, you know that the shit that we go through for this, huh?
I know. Fuckers better appreciate it. When we started, we were just like, yeah, we're just going to do this, man. You know, shoot our wad into the wind and see what happens. What's the title of this podcast again?
I don't know. I don't know. Something with a penis, I guess.
Right.
Our fucking faces are everywhere now.
Right.
But
you're welcome, ladies.
Right. Popular with the ladies. Right. Oh, I'm not even going to apologize because hopefully it sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, totally. This is fucking explicit now.
The explicit button. Let me use my finger.
La, 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 la.
It is time for another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And that episode starts now. All right, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And you know what, Mike? What?
Just the way you pronounced it, because we just recorded our little promo for the new shop, and I mushed it.
Did I just mush it?
No, you didn't. You intentionally overpronounced it.
Oh, did I?
You did. And it made me laugh.
And you know what the funny part is I must have done that unconsciously, because I didn't even realize. Well, and normally I'm not the enunciating type. I mince and munch and whatever words all together. So, but anyhow,
have we started yet?
I think we did. I think we're recording. But anyhow, so I have in my hand, I've got a Sober Not Mature pen. I'm looking at our Sober Not Mature picture that our great friend Morgan made for us. I got a sheet full of notes. I'm all ready to fucking go. But so we don't start rambling too much. Do you have your reading? You got your books this week?
I do. I do.
Well, let's get, as we would for any day of the week, let's start our podcast off right with a reading from our friend Mike. Right.
Let's start the podcast off right with good words that aren't ours.
Right.
You know what? I was this is cool, man, because like I've talked about before, you know, I used to always start my groups at the Keating Center with a reading, and I haven't been able to do that in a while. So I was doing my readings this week, and nothing was jumping out at me, which happened before. So what I did was I grabbed my God Grant Me book, and I have a green piece of paper that I've used as a bookmark for years and years and years that I would stick in there when I was going to go do group. And I opened it up to where that green piece of paper was, because it was the last one I looked up to go do a group that I ended up not doing. So that's what I'm going to share with you today.
All right. We're sitting here with bated breath.
Well, right then. And the funny thing is, it is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
Look at that.
Yeah. Anyway, March 17th, a knowledge of the path cannot be substituted for putting one foot in front of the other. MC Richards, whoever the hell that is. Once in a while, we meet someone who hangs around recovery but does not really step into it. These people know all about the 12 steps. They sound very wise. They might even go to meetings, but they don't stay sober. Why not? Because knowing about something is different from doing it. Doing it means more than going to meetings and learning the lingo of recovery. It means asking a strong role model to be our sponsor and staying in close touch with that person. It means working the steps with our sponsor's help. Every day we put one foot in front of the other. We go to meetings. We read the big book. We pray or meditate. We ask for our higher power's help. We call our sponsor. We fill our time with good things, work, healthy relationships, and self-care. Prayer for the day. Higher power, please help me really work a good recovery program. I know it takes practice every day to live in this new way. Today's action says actions because this is a program of action. Today, I will work on a step. I will call my sponsor. I will spend a few minutes in prayer or meditation. I will be of service to someone else, which pretty much sums up what we need to do every
Right.
day.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. As soon as you started reading that, I'm like, God, I remember this one. Well, and you know what? It's funny because we've talked about this plenty of times before that, and the mechanical nature of it. That was actually one of the notes I had on the sheet. But things become very very mechanical. I mean
Right. Yeah,
the
we do
readings
things by
and
rote sometimes.
which I looked at that, and when I wrote it down, and I'll read the note in a minute, but we might actually just talk about whatever I wrote anyhow now.
Yeah.
But the whole point is when I first thought about it, I'm kind of like, wow, I really need to, slow down and pay attention to the readings and this and that. But you know what? I mean, part of it is I don't know, maybe it's not a bad thing that this just becomes our nature, and
Right.
I mean, granted, we need to step back and we got to focus, and there's certain readings that it'll grab me, kind of like you said, it just the words start to really hold on, and I'm like, okay, then it pulls me in.
Right.
I mean, I read 4 different things in the morning, and not every one of them, like flips my hair back, as they say.
Right. Oh yeah,
just
definitely.
but yeah, I mean, it's just so I remember that, and then the same thing you said is that I can't think of anyone right off the top of my head, but every place I've lived, been, gone to a meeting, whatever, there's always at least one, if not 2 or 3 individuals that are like that. The big book
Oh
quarters,
yeah.
and everyone
Right.
they can tell you everything, what page it's on, and all that stuff. Which is fine if they combine
Sure.
that with what you said. I mean, this is
Right.
all about action, right?
Yep.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good reading, I think, especially for St. Patrick's Day of all days, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm sure somebody sat there and went, "Hey, man, this is probably a good one to put on this day."
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and the note was it was actually from the 10th that I wrote this down. And it was from the one of the books I read is One Day at a Time. There's a 24-hour book and then One Day at a Time. And then it said, "May the words of the Serenity Prayer never become mechanical for me or lose their meaning in the lulling rhythms of repetition." And the just readings itself, but also the Serenity Prayer. I mean, there's 2 different times a day at a minimum I say the Serenity Prayer, and that's because
Right.
it's a lead into an area of my prayers that I do every day. I start off with Serenity Prayer and do a couple other things in morning and night. And seriously, when I'm doing it, it becomes it's mechanical. I don't have to think
Sure.
about it anymore, but
Right.
again, I don't know that that's a bad thing,
Right. Yeah. Seriously, I probably don't do the Serenity Prayer every day. But when I do it at a meeting, when it's done at a meeting and I'm doing it with everyone else, I actually a long time ago forced myself when we're doing it at a meeting to actually think about it, to actually think about the words. I tend to do it in a slightly different cadence than everyone else who's just mechanically doing it. I put different inflections on different words that are important to me.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, I don't do the Serenity Prayer that way. But when I do it at a meeting or whatever, I try to pay attention to it because it isn't part of my mechanical thing. I've got plenty of stuff that I do mechanically every day. And that's not one of them, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Well, and it was in the same thing with, I don't remember even and we had talked about this briefly a long, long time ago on one of the earlier episodes about, like when our set of prayers started and things like that. And I don't
Right.
remember how everything built to the point that it is for me now. But a lot of what I say now, I've been doing since, we were walking that Kylie mile. And the only reason I remember that is just remembering walking down there and doing that, and then realizing it's like, even at that point, when did I come up with this? Not come up with it, but when did I start saying these things the way that I do? Because at that point, I mean, I had my dad in my prayers. I mean, my daughter at that time was in my prayers because, she and I was praying for again, who's ever will, for me to
Right.
be patient for it when I didn't want to be,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that just changed. Now I just, pray for her as part of my life, so,
Sure. Yeah.
but still, I mean, that set of things that I do becomes ridiculously mechanical until I have to
Mm-hmm.
switch something up. So, I mean, mom became
Mm-hmm.
part of my prayers
Mm-hmm.
in now that she in a passed away form versus
Mm-hmm.
when she was not feeling well versus,
Right.
when she not necessarily wasn't in my prayers, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So you
Right.
replace people in different places, but
Mm-hmm.
still it is a kind of a mechanical thing, it just is.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, you know. Right. But again, it's that fine line. We have to be careful that it doesn't become too mechanical. We have to remember that we're doing this for a fucking reason.
Right.
Yeah. We
Well,
got to remember what that reason is.
and that's a good point too, because I thankfully to this day I've never sat down to do my readings and my prayers and grumbled about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never been like, fuck man, I got to do this shit, you know. I haven't had to
Right.
do that. So I mean, that part of it, you're right though. I mean, it doesn't need to become it's habit, it's routine, it's all those different
Mm-hmm.
things. But we need to recognize the importance behind it. But yeah, if I ever sat down and I was just kind of like, man, this I don't even fucking want to do this, but here I go.
Right.
I
Oh yeah. Yeah.
think
Well,
that would be a problem.
exactly. Occasionally having to go to a meeting or being responsible for something or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes I do get the
And if you're
attitude
still
of, oh
talking,
fuck, I got to go do this, and I've got to
I can't
remember.
hear you
No,
at the
I
moment.
get to go do this. You know. Yeah, which I don't always do perfectly. Imagine that.
All right, so we have no fucking idea where we were. Just there was we were talking about something mechanical. If you guys hear a little bit of a break or a messed up in conversation right before then, I don't know. We had some sort of fucking technical issue. Had to set up a new
We did.
studio, and basically, what by the time you're listening to this, I've duct taped everything together, and however
Right. So just ignore all this. Doesn't matter.
right, but it's like fuck it, I don't care, let's start.
Right.
All right, so we were talking about mechanical shit. I already got that stuff done. There was one
Right.
other thing that I read in the 24-hour book,
Mm-hmm.
and it talked about receiving gifts that we don't deserve.
Uh-huh.
Once we get to work and become better people, don't we
Mm-hmm.
actually deserve those gifts? And
Ah.
that was my part of it. But the 24-hour book, it said, about receiving gifts that we don't deserve. And I
Right.
don't remember I didn't write down it word for word, but so
Mm-hmm.
my thought pattern on it, I want to ask your opinion.
Uh,
So once we do actually, we get in there, we do the work, we keep doing the work, we're better
yeah.
people.
No.
Do we now deserve the gifts? What's your opinion?
Um. Again, slippery slope, man.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why I asked this. That's why I asked this shit. It's fun shit to talk about.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. Goddamn, that is tough because yeah, sure, we've done the work. We've earned certain things, but we're also alcoholics, and we have to be really careful because, speaking for myself, for the majority of my life, I was entitled. This world fucking owed me shit. And, even when I wasn't doing the work, you fuckers still owed me everything. So yeah, I can't get in that mindset where, yes, I deserve it, but it's not owed to me. I've got to remember that I've got to keep working at it. Otherwise I'll lose it all. So,
Right.
Yeah, you deserve. I don't know. I don't like deserve. I like earned. And there's a difference. There is a difference between deserved
huge.
and earned. Yeah. So if we again got to keep our minds straight. It's not always easy to do because my mind is quite crooked. But if we keep the mindset that yes, we've earned certain things, but we don't deserve any of it. Because again, don't dwell on the past, but all I got to do is dwell for a couple of minutes on the kind of person I was and the actions that I took in my past, and I don't deserve fucking anything.
Well, yeah, what's funny was, and this seems kind of weird, but and I remember I forgot I wrote this down or typed this down, but so it pissed me off. Like if somebody came up to me and said, "You don't deserve that," that would be like, "What the fuck do you mean?"
Right.
But then when I wrote down, do we actually deserve? I'm like, ooh, that sounds weird. So it is. If somebody tells us, or well,
Mm.
I'll speak for me. If
Right.
somebody tells me I don't deserve something, like, well, I've done the
Mhm.
work, but I'm
Mhm.
not going to walk around. And that's the reason I left that word in there because it made me
Right.
uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
clearly it did you too, which was awesome
Yeah.
because you're like, oh God, ooh, ow. But no, you're right. The old what? Who was that? That we earned it. Because there was the
You
old
all right? You
financial.
stroking out? What the fuck?
No, the old financial commercial. We feel better because we earned it. The guy, that
Ah.
dude, that whatever his name is.
Mhm.
Um, but that's the whole point. We used to joke about that. It's just
Right.
it does. It feels better when you earn something, rather than being selfish and being like, okay, no, you got to give me this because I deserve it. So. And it was you're right. It's a a slippery slope, but it was actually very funny listening to you kind of go back and forth. So, but
Right. Yeah.
but yeah,
Well, speaking of financial, there's this again. Keep myself open to spiritual concepts or whatever. There's this radio guy I used to listen to when I was driving around, and all I had was radio back in the old days. Um, when I was truck driving in the country, and sometimes the radio, you didn't have a lot of choice of what you could listen to. And there's this guy Dave Ramsey who is like this Christian financial radio host, and people would ask him how he's doing, and his answer was always better than I deserve, which
right.
I always liked. I've actually used it several times in sobriety. I use it quite a bit. How you doing, man? Better than I deserve. And it is. And again, the guy's kind of an asshole, and he's kind of not, but whatever. That being what it is, I've taken something that works for me and I use it. Imagine
Right.
that. And leave the rest.
Well, and I think I don't know if I may have heard you say that before. I've heard that saying before, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't recognize that dude's name, so I don't believe I've heard it from that particular
Right.
individual. But I've heard that before, and I agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Right. Yes,
And
I
that
am
is
doing better than I deserve.
right, because seriously, when we think back at all and I think that's probably and now I'm thinking about it, like the gifts and things like that. I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest reasons that all the things that we have are considered gifts, because
Right.
they're things that are given to us based on the work we did.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have to, we didn't take them, we didn't anything
Right.
like that. It just,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, it's not like we deserve them necessarily. It's just that we did this, and then we receive based on our wonderful actions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. We've received something, and we actually didn't lie, cheat, or steal to get it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. So, okay, but I think that was the last one I had out of any of the books or anything like that. Like I
No.
said, it's just kind of going back to what we were talking about, and you specifically saying that paying attention to the readings because you
Mhm.
got to read one. Seriously, some of these things have just been kind of popping up for the same reason. That
Right.
I'm paying more attention and
Yeah.
thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, this would be a great thing to talk about.
Mhm.
I do have actually a couple of things from.
So personally, we'd like to thank you fuckers for making us pay more attention.
That's the gift that we've received from them.
Right. Our wonderful listeners.
Right. Oh, and speaking of gifts, real quick. I mean the
Yeah.
picture. Obviously, you saw the picture that Morgan did for us. She had said, I don't know, it might have even been a couple of months ago. She
Mhm.
had sent me a message on Instagram. And she's like, I'm making something for you. I'm like, what do you mean you're making something for me? And she's like, no. She goes like, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it'll take me a little bit. And this is all. It's these. I don't know, all these little, almost like little plastic push pins in there,
Oh, is that what
So,
that is? I
yeah.
couldn't. Yeah, I mean, I saw it on my phone, and I couldn't tell if it was like needlepoint or some kind of rug hooking thing, or I don't know. Yeah.
It's actually these little individual square pieces
Okay.
that go in there to make that. I mean,
Gotcha.
talk about fucking time consuming. Because then see, Joel had sent a message about that too, or not message, but had commented about it, saying that he had never had anyone, take one of his pieces of art and put it into a picture like that, and thought it was cool. And I had forgot to tell her about that, so I messaged her today and told her, and she's typing back, and she's like, just so you know, she goes, there was times that was really frustrating because she's like, the colors weren't lining up and I'm trying to get it. But I mean, everything like that. Yeah. I mean, wait till you end up seeing it in person. It's, I would have gone out of my fucking mind. I would have done 3 of those and been done. 3 pieces.
Right.
Done.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I ain't fucking doing this.
Right.
I don't even like doing jigsaw puzzles anymore.
No,
we used to do those with Mom though in the wintertime.
Okay.
We'd set up a card table. Actually, God, it might even go back as far as when we lived in Parma. I know we did it in Pittsburgh, and I'm pretty sure we did it in Wisconsin. But we just Mom would set up a card table, and she'd grab a puzzle, and then we'd kind of not really take turns, but when we had time, sit down and do the puzzle. The 3 of us would, and I mean, it was. Sometimes it'd be sitting there for I don't know how long, but it was just on a table, usually in the other room, out of the way, and then we just sit down and do a puzzle. But
that is some wholesome American shit right there,
isn't it?
It is.
And I think back about some of these things we had with there. I mean, there's a lot of things that a lot of great memories of things like that we did when we were kids and stuff like that. And that was just one of them, But yeah, I hadn't thought about that in years, but until I was looking at this thing. But yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
but
it is.
But yeah, I mean this thing is a gift, and I told her, I said it's cool as fuck. I think it looks good, all those different things. But I'm like, the gesture in and of itself, and again, the fucking time I'm like, wow.
Yeah, the fact that somebody spent that much time and effort on us is just pretty amazing.
I know. I was just like, I mean, seriously, I was blown away, and I told her, I'm like, we appreciate it, and I even told her, I said, take a look on the website. I said, if there's anything you want, I said, we'll help you out.
Right.
Because I'm like, I don't know. She's super sweet, and she said she did it. She does things like this as part of her recovery. She said people that she has a connection with in the recovery world, she likes to do things like this as part of her recovery work.
Nice.
And I'm like,
that makes sense.
Oh, it's fucking cool. Just really fucking cool.
Yeah.
So, but the thing about a couple of things from another podcast, and this one cracked me up, and this guy from it's again male female combo that I've talked about before in this one podcast, and he said he goes, when this is his exact line, because I rewound it a couple of times so I could write it down. He said when he first got sober, he basically acted out of spite, and then he said, which is not healthy, of course. And I just started laughing. I'm like, oh no, it's fucking healthy,
perfectly healthy.
I know it was healthy to begin with, continues to be healthy, and is one of the cornerstones of our program. So
that's right.
I just thought it was funny, but and then there goes
there
the
they
dogs.
are.
Yeah, I wonder if hang on one second. I'm just pause for this brief look out the window. No,
right. Yeah.
Nobody's home. I thought maybe Kathy was getting home.
Anybody kicking the door in?
Yeah, who knows? No, apparently not. But I don't know. I was like, usually they'll start to bark when the garage door and stuff goes up. But God only knows what they're barking at now. But hopefully they'll quiet down.
Each other, little walnut-sized braids.
Well, and the other thing too is I'm sure that they Kathy came home. She took a half day, so she was home early this afternoon and let them out and stuff like that. So, but at this point, I'm sure that they just want to be running around. But
right.
All right. So the next one, and I think this was from a different podcast, but the guy asked this person asked a question: what's the biggest challenge you had to overcome, or you've had to overcome, to maintain your sobriety? Is there any one thing that you can pick out, like the biggest thing you had to challenge or anything? Or
me.
I mean, that's fair. That's a fair statement.
It's the first thing that came to mind, and it's the most honest answer I can give. Yeah, the biggest challenge I had to overcome was me. My thinking, my attitudes, me. Yeah. It's It is that simple.
And what's funny is that a lot of times what I've been trying to do when I again I say write these things down, but I'm putting them
Uh-huh.
on a little notepad in my phone. But
Right.
I try not to think into them too much, because then I forget that I even have it on, and I just kind of scan through these things while we're talking. So I have what seems like a more original answer, and I didn't think about this one at all. But when you just said that, and
Mhm.
we've talked openly enough about how I was when I first came in,
Right.
and I mean that's probably the easiest answer that I can have, and even going along, because knowing how and again, just speaking for myself,
Hmm.
I'm still impatient, I'm still egotistical, I'm better at all these things, but I still have
Sure.
them. I
Sure.
still get these senses of it's got to happen now, and I want this now, and I don't like this, and I don't
Hmm.
like that. So,
Hmm.
so I'm still the same fucking person, just hopefully a shinier version, a watered
Right.
down,
Yeah.
shinier version of that fucking asshole that I was
Yeah.
on
That's
on
that's pretty
April
much it.
April 23rd when I walked into the Keating Center, I think so, or 24th, whatever fucking day it was, 25th, I
Right.
guess, I don't know. But yeah, that's a pretty good answer. And I don't remember what and he had a female guest, and I wish I could remember what she said now. But yeah, it's just I'm popping through some of these different podcasts again, once again while I'm working. So
Hmm.
it's one of those things where I'm paying attention. I hear some of these things pop up, and I'm just like, well, then I'll stop for a minute and then listen to what they are, and kind of go into a little bit more, listen a
Hmm.
little bit more intently, I guess is the best way to put it. But
Right.
um,
Yeah. And I'm sitting there kind of thinking, yeah. I mean, that is the easy answer, and I can go, okay, the higher power thing,
right,
the loss of my best friend, which was liquor and drugs, and all that good stuff. But I mean, yeah, it all does boil down to me.
right,
I was the biggest obstacle. Yeah. Yeah. I was just
right.
thinking more about it. Yeah.
No, I mean, I actually like, usually the idea and the saying in this whole thing for us is that from what we were taught was,
Right.
first thought wrong. But I don't think your first thought was wrong
Right.
in this case, because I mean, literally when you said that, I'm like, oh damn, that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty much
All the
it.
other shit. I mean, you can go into lots of different things, but it all those boils down to I am the. Well, yeah. Like when guys, and I always did kind of like when somebody will say, I'm an alcoholic, and the problem is insert your name.
Right,
Yeah. Definitely the problem is me. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and I've got this disease and whatever, but the problem is me, and I need to change me. And then if I change me, then the alcohol isn't such a problem anymore.
right. Well, there
Yep.
was a guy, and I'm sure I've talked about him before. His name was Bear. He was in Madison.
Yeah, you've talked about him, right?
Oh yeah, and I actually asked Travis about that, because Travis used to go to the same meeting that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that I went to. But
Right.
that's how he would, every time that he spoke, and it was discussion
Hmm.
meetings that I went to, he would introduce himself, and I'm an alcoholic, and my problem is me. Every single
Hmm.
time he would start off like that, and he
Yep.
was, I mean, seriously a badass motherfucker. But I mean, he was a little bit of a talker, but not like too much, and he
Hmm.
really did he was engaging in the shit that he talked about, because I mean he had some time and a lot of experiences,
Right.
but he truly was. And the other way he would close out all of his, every time he shared, he would close
Hmm.
out all of his conversations with hey, that's just my opinion, that's how I work my program. He goes, you might get
Hmm.
drunk on my program, I might get drunk on
Hmm.
yours, every
Right.
single time, which I thought was also very cool,
That is.
because we were talking about that with Ashley last week, saying that there's
Uh-huh.
there's whatever keeps you sober type of thing, right? It's not,
Yep.
there's not just one path. And
Hmm.
if this person's a little bit over here, they're still on the path, just happens to
Right.
be a little bit of a different one that maybe you and I are on, so
Yeah. 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 And like I said to her, there is only one path. It's just really fucking wide.
right, right. Well, what'd you say about the hoop that you have to jump through, or
Yeah, that's in the 12 and 12. Yeah, when the leap of faith, the hoop we have to jump through is a lot bigger than we think it is.
right? Which I
Yeah,
like that, and I
yeah.
remember that. I didn't remember where it was from, but yeah, I mean, I definitely like that. So,
Hmm.
well, good. Oh yeah, speaking of, and I had other notes on here that I want to talk about real quick. So we were approached by a couple of people, and I emailed back the two that I sent you, the one that has the online group. I had
Mm-hmm.
emailed her back, and again, apologized a little bit for the delay. She said,
Right.
"Cool, not a problem." So we still have to. That's a possibility. The other one with the book, I emailed her back, and I haven't heard anything. So
Okay.
that one might be a wash. But there's
Okay.
a yesterday
I'm glad I
or
didn't read it.
but yes, it was either yesterday or today. It might have been yesterday. One of our followers, and I'm familiar with her. I don't have a lot of interactions with her, but
Mm-hmm.
I followed her posts and things like that. So she had sent me a message, and first of all said that she enjoys the podcast, loves what we do, enjoys us, which I thought was great. I
Nice.
thanked her
Yeah.
obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
then she said if you guys ever interviewed or had a couple on that not only went through addiction together, but then went to rehab together and are still
Mm.
together and married now. And I said,
Right.
well, we have a couple that are friends of ours. I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
of Tony and Angel that were
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
on that path.
Oh yeah, that came to mind too. Yep.
Yeah, but I said we've never interviewed anyone like that. But I had told
Right.
her to send an email. But
Mm-hmm.
she's been sober. I know she said they've been married for 14 years.
Mm.
I'm thinking that 7 sounds right as far as how long they've been sober.
Okay.
But anyhow, I figured, what the hell, while we're on here, I wrote down the note. I
Yeah.
mean, we've never had a couple in addiction together,
Right.
and certainly in recovery. So they've been through the whole thing together.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to her and try to get some more ideas on what they
That
want
could
to
be
talk
fun.
about, and then do that. And then Christine said she wanted to come back on too. She said she wants to do a Q&A with us. She had mentioned that about
Okay.
asking us a bunch of questions. And I said, well, let me know your schedule, because she's the one
Yeah.
with, a husband
Right.
and 4 kids and,
Right.
a zillion different things to do. So, and then I still didn't get the write-up from Rory from Project Clean, but I mean,
Okay.
the web store is open now, so everyone's going to see that
Mm-hmm.
there is a tab on there for Project Clean.
Right.
Just so everyone knows what it came down to is that we're basically in collaboration with Rory at Project Clean. He
Mm-hmm.
was episode number 36, so if you want to listen back on that, hear what he's about, we are going to have him back on. He wants to
Mm-hmm.
wait. He said he's in the process of working with a couple other groups and nonprofits, and he's got a couple of things working. So he said
Sure.
once that happens, maybe in the next 30 days, he wants to come back on
Nice.
and talk to us about, what's happened since that was the end of September. Because that was
Right.
we had him on the Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, yeah, the Friday that before Mom died. So figure
Right.
actually shit, that was October. But there's a lot been going on in the last couple of months. So
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah. It'd be good to touch base with him again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what I did for everyone out there is that when you click into there, you're going to see a landing page for Project Clean. It has the
Mm-hmm.
mission, his whole mission statement and stuff on there. And if you click on any of I've got 3 buttons on there going down the page. All of them will go directly to his website. He's the one with the all natural soaps that supports addiction recovery. 50
Yep.
half, so 50% of his net profits he
Mm-hmm.
donates to addiction recovery,
Yep.
mainly in the Portland, Oregon area at this point, but he's looking at expanding. And Mike and I have been talking to him for a while, and
Yeah.
we're kind of working on this whole collaboration. We might be doing other things with him, but it's somebody that we feel very strongly about supporting, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a good thing going on there. We wanna help support him, definitely.
Right. And I'll just be open with everyone about this too. To begin with, what we were going to do was we were going to try to sell his soap on our
Mm-hmm.
website. And as
Right.
it turned out, and the profit margin is relatively small, and the more and more we looked at it and figured out how this is going to work, the idea is that if we, and this is going to seem stupid, but if we
Hmm.
actually tried to help him in the way of selling it, we probably would have hurt
Right.
him, because
Yeah.
I think we would have taken too much of his time. We would have taken away
Mm-hmm.
from his profits, which means we would have been taken away from people in the addiction recovery industry.
Right.
So we basically told him that, hey, let's collaborate with you. We'll figure out if we can bring on new business for you. We'll talk about things at that point. But
Mm-hmm.
we're promoting him because we believe in what he's doing.
Exactly.
And then it was funny because we got followed by another page again yesterday, or I think it was yesterday also. The page is called, and the coffee. It's coffee. It's called Brainwash Coffee. And it's fucking awesome because it is. It's it's a recovery base, this and that. And the funny part is that, or the interesting part, I guess, is that they're doing the same thing. They are
Right.
part of their profits are going towards addiction recovery. So
Nice.
I did the same thing. I reached out to the guy and I said, "Hey, we're doing this. Would you want to do anything like that?" I was thinking that what a great fucking brand of coffee to be able to sell.
Right.
But he said the same thing though. They've got their own e-commerce store.
Mhm.
So I told him, I said, "No, I get it." I said, "I'm not looking at, again, stepping on people's toes or
Sure.
anything in that matter." But I said, if same deal. I said, take a look at our website. I sent him to link to Project Clean's page. I'm like, if we could do the same thing for you as we do for him, we'd be more than happy to, because again, the mission, I get these companies out there doing this stuff, which is, I don't know, in my opinion, fucking awesome, So,
yeah, no doubt.
but yeah, if you get a chance, and I didn't look, I don't know if they have a website, but next time you're on Instagram, just look up, and I think it's all one word, Brainwash Coffee. It's fucking awesome.
Okay.
Great packaging and stuff on it too.
Cool.
It's just really cool. So, yeah, it actually, if hang on one second, I got to do some math real quick. 24.
Oh boy.
I'll try to think. We were like that
Take
first.
your shoes off so you can use your toes too.
I know. I'm just looking at. We were like, I think 13 minutes in on that other clip, and now 24. Yeah, we're. I think we're at a good point for a break. So, Mr. Mike, if you would like to ease us into a new break.
All right. Well, stay tuned for more Sober Not Mature. And you know what? It's been a long fucking week. Stay tuned for more Sober Not Mature right after these messages from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, it's your friends at Sober Not Mature.
Hi there.
And, yes, it's both of your friends this time. Hi Mike, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Bill?
I am doing well, but we do have a purpose. We actually usually talk about our one website, but we actually have two websites now. So two websites in one. All right, so everyone knows we still have the podcast website that is www.SoberNotMature.com. And we just launched the store website, so we also have that. Do you know what the website address is on that one, Mike?
Of course I don't.
It's pretty easy, Mike. It's www.SoberNotMatureShop.com. So, but from the podcast website, you can still hit the store link and get into the web store, or you can access it from our Instagram page through the highlights. We've been posting quite a bit about it, and we'll continue to do that. But do you know what's on the second website, Mike?
Well, there's a store. There are products that you can purchase for you and your loved ones.
Well, Mike, do we still have merchandise?
We have merchandise. Well, we got T-shirts and coffee mugs and all kinds of crap.
And one of the coolest parts, we also do have all the recovery books from Hazelden, which is kind of a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Yeah, at least for us. So all the books that we read, God Grant Me, 24 Hours, the Big Book, the 12 and 12, all of those books are available for sale on our website. And once again, that store website is www.sober.
Trying to help, man.
I know you are. You're not helping, though. Okay, now I got to say www.SoberNotMatureShop.com. .com. Visit that today, or visit the podcast website, which is, again, the podcast website. So
www.SoberNotMature.com.
Did you just say sober but not mature?
Yeah, sure. Write that down.
Yeah, like fucking mush mouth or something. All right, everyone. You've suffered enough with this, and we'll get back to what we were talking about previously. So visit the websites, though. All right, everyone. Well, welcome back to sober or not mature.
Sober or not.
Hang on one second. I'm gonna.
How are you? What the fuckers? What the fuck buddies? Oh, wrong podcast.
Right. No, it is funny. I do love Mark Maron's opening, but I was laughing. I was kind of choking on myself. I muted myself so I could actually laugh and clear my throat.
Choking on yourself. Wait a minute. Are you that flexible?
I was just going to say I'm flexible. Yep. That's another thing that needs to go on my dating resume. I can choke on myself.
Wow.
Why?
What are you doing this for?
I was going to say, why would I ever even go anywhere or do anything, right?
Right. Because he can.
Exactly, because he can. So, but yeah, that was funny. I can't wait. I can't wait till you try to close this motherfucker out too. I'm just sitting back waiting for that one. All right, so this is kind of funny, and I don't remember. This had to have been from a podcast, but so I know that at the time that I came in and obviously to the Keating Center, I had a cell phone. Well, I know for a fact you didn't have a smartphone right away. So did you ever get? I mean, while you were still drinking, did you ever get involved in drunk like texting or anything like that? I mean, did you ever get like look back and at that time or no?
No. I mean, seriously, I didn't have a cell phone the last 5 years of my drinking.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, nah, I didn't give a fuck. I'm gonna waste
Right.
money on that shit.
Right. Well, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, no, I didn't. So no. I mean, when I only really had one cell phone prior to getting sober, and like I said, it was 5 years before I got sober. And there was probably some drunk phone calls, but that was landlines too. I did that, so no,
Right.
never drunk texting.
But
So why did you bring that up?
No, it was just I think they were talking about it on a podcast, and it made me think about it because I know
Okay.
I didn't either. I had a Motorola Razor at the time, which was I mean that was at that time you figure 2008 or 9 when I got that phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a refurbished one, so it wasn't like brand new because they were like $200 or $300 phones at that time. It was,
Right.
I mean, and again at that time that was pretty fucking expensive for a stupid phone, It
Right.
might even been $400 or $500 either way. So, and that's when when you had the you had the text and like boop 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 boop. That's one
Right,
letter.
right,
Boop
yeah.
boop boop.
Yeah.
Second letter. Boop boop boop.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that I could have done that drunk, but but then the other thing too, like social media. So you were on MySpace prior to getting sober, is right?
I was.
Okay.
Yep.
And I didn't get on any social media until after I got sober. I didn't have a smartphone, so I mean, I don't know. I just after they were talking about it on one of these podcasts, I'm like, fuck, man, we dodged a couple of bullets. I think some of those things,
most
right?
definitely. Yep.
So no, that was the only reason. I was just curious if because I remembered that. I don't know. I remembered that I had a phone, and I didn't realize you didn't have a phone when you actually came in. But
Nope.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, once again, it was just a matter of I feel like there was a bullet or two dodged with not having to.
Most definitely.
Most
definitely.
Well, and that's the thing too. I guess the only good part is the times that I picked up the phone when I was loaded, and it was usually when it was, I don't know, probably right after I would say my daughter's mom and I split up. When Dawn and I split up, I mean, we didn't talk for a number of years, so that wasn't a problem. But I think it was mainly with her. I don't really think I ever like called like other random people in my life and lit them up while I was drunk. I don't think. But I mean, but again, the fact that I don't remember it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
It doesn't mean it didn't happen. Right.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't know. It just one of those things I think that came up on another podcast, and it just crossed my mind. So, I know it. Did you and I didn't hear you or see you respond to it yet. Did you see that I got tickets for the Foo Fighters?
I didn't see you got tickets. I saw you posted something about that they were playing the Harley thing up in Milwaukee this summer.
Yeah, that's the 120th Harley Homecoming in Milwaukee, and the Foo Fighters. It popped up on Facebook, I think, while I was scrolling through Facebook while I was eating lunch, and I saw it. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? And I mean, it must have it was like announced that morning, and I'm like, fuck this. I went on, I bought tickets right away. So
nice.
I have 2 tickets. If you want to go, I think that'd be a lot of fun. I mean, there was one.
When
thing,
is it?
July 15th.
Mm. Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
I don't know what the hell I'm doing tomorrow. So
I get it. I mean, I understand. You know, part of me was like, I'm gonna hold out and find a girl to take with you. I'm like, fuck that.
Mm.
Let me take my buddy. We'll pick up biker hose. Well, I'll pick up biker hose. You can't pick up biker hose.
Right. Yeah, that's they're doing that with Green Day up there, right?
Yep. Green Day.
Yeah.
Green Day's Friday night. Foo Fighters headline Saturday night.
Oh, okay.
Joan Jett and the Blackhearts are there on Saturday also. So
No, cool.
I bought tickets. You could buy 1 day passes. So I got
Mhm.
the Saturday 1 day pass, and it just happened
Okay.
to be after I ordered them. I saw. I'm like, fuck, man. I said Joan Jett's playing there too, but
Nice.
it'll be cool. The biggest problem right now and is going to be trying to find any place to stay. I need to figure out, you know,
Mhm.
like how transportation comes in. I know they have buses because Veterans Park is right down. If you remember, we drove down along the lakefront and went
Right.
downtown. That's where Veterans
Uh-huh.
Park is. It's right off
Okay.
of the lakefront, and down from there is the Summerfest grounds. But the
Mhm.
last time that and it must have been 100, had to have been 115th. Same thing. They did it down at Veterans Park, you know.
Okay.
But it's, you know, it's I don't even know how the stages or anything are set up, and it's like this all day event or a whole weekend
Right.
event. But yeah, it
Mhm.
should be kind of a big deal. But I think it'd be, well, I know for a fact it'd be a lot of fun. Plus, on top of that, there'll be shit going on all over the city that entire
Yeah.
weekend. I mean,
Right.
and it's just it's a good time. I think I thought it'd be fun, and I figured yeah, what the fuck, man, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah, it sounds like a plan.
all right, so July 15th, mark
All
it.
right. Consider it marked.
Yeah, consider it marked. So one of the things I had written down, and this was from a while ago, and I know we've talked about, you know, like making amends and things like that, and all those sort of
Mhm.
things. But when you actually were making your amends or got to that point, how did
Mhm.
you like physically approach them? Like when you made amends to people, I don't know, how did you approach it? That's what I wrote down. I know what I mean. Hopefully you've got an idea of what I mean. But how did you go about making your amends to a particular person or anyone?
Oof. Honestly, some of the people that, I owe amends to, I can't. Um, I never put pressure on myself. I've always subscribed to the theory of living amends. There are things that I can't fix. There are things that I will never be able to make up to people. Um, I just want to continue to be a better person and be there for people. And I didn't have a lot of financial amends to make. I didn't really, I didn't. I mean, yeah, I stole from people and stuff,
Right.
but I yeah, again, a lot of the things that I did in the past, there's nothing I can do to fix it. So I had to come to that conclusion that there are some things I'm just never going to fix. All I can do is be that asshole that I was today. That's a big part of my amends. There were the few things that I could do. You know, my bank account, I owed a few $100s to a bank. It wasn't a lot, but I made sure that when I got my shit together, I went back to that bank to do my banking. Made sure I paid off that couple $100 or whatever it was, and I'm still doing the majority of my banking with that institution.
Right.
Yeah, shit like that. I mean, I went back to a job that I kind of fucked over, the one that I could go back to. It was the last regular job that I had before I got sober. I went back to them and just kind of, sat down with the manager there and said, "Hey, man, sorry, I was such a shitty employee." And they were just like, "Yeah, we're sorry we had to let you go because you were a good employee. You were just unreliable and just stunk alcohol half the time." And you were driving our vehicles around. So yeah, shit like that. My ex-wife, I told the story. I ran into her when I was about 6 months sober. I hadn't seen her in 15 years. at the grocery store across from the Keating Center.
Right.
I just wrote her a short letter, gave her a copy of a book that was kind of important to us early on, and with a little inscription in it, and moved on. She certainly had moved on with her life at that point, and little shit like that. And again, I didn't have to make any huge amends to people, because the people that I really screwed over generally weren't around anymore.
Right.
So yeah, the living amends. That's how I do that. I think I told the story on here about, Foxy Don, the guy who's got 45 years sober, and, that I was helping a dude out, another drunk, and he was, 2 weeks into it going, I got to finish my 9th step. And we walked into the meeting, and I said, hey, Don, when'd you finish your 9th step? And he just looked up, completely out of context. He just looked up and said, I'm still working on it. That's how I do that. I'm still working on that 9th step.
Right.
It's the short answer after that big, long answer.
No. And I mean, that's something that, and I know we've touched on probably bits and pieces of everything that you just said. But and we talked about this before, and there's going to come a time, and I mean, this is episode number 48. and I mean, clearly we're going to repeat ourselves, but you said it perfectly. Sure. You're like, it needs to be said again. We needed to hear this shit again. Because if we forget, and if we need to be told, there's possibly other people out there that, need to hear it again too. So, once again, probably, and that was probably a month ago that I wrote that down, and I saw it on there usually after I was going through and deleting things after we do an episode, but I just couldn't remember if we had talked in more detail about that. But right. The funny thing is, and again, I know I told this story, but when I got the call from Mom that Larry, our stepdad, was in the hospital that right. Friday, and again, I was a year and a couple of months sober at the time, and had already had the opportunity to do that living amends that you just talked about, for a year. But the thing of it was with Larry, and I don't know if I knew this before or after he died. It doesn't really matter. It didn't surprise me. But he had basically told Mom, don't get involved with him again. He's going to hurt you again. He's going to disappoint you. Don't do it. And she said, well, whatever she said, obviously I think she was cautious. I know she was to begin with, but
sure.
He was super cautious,
Right.
But,
yeah.
But I had that opportunity where he and I would spend some time and do some shit. And I had that year, to do exactly what you just said, that living amends. But when I got that call, I remember driving down there, and I'm like, fuck, man, I never sat down with him, and I never sat down and had the conversation. And seriously, for about whatever it was, a couple of minutes, wasn't long. I'm like, I need to make my amends. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I mean, this dude.
Yeah. What have you been doing for the past year, 14, 15 months?
Right. And that's exactly where my mind was. So first of all, this dude's about to die. Mom's going to be going through fucking hell. That's her time with him.
Right.
But on top of that, you're right. I had that entire year. And that's the realization that thankfully came over me, to realize that that's what I did, and I know he loved me, and he trusted me, and he cared about me, and he forgave me, and all those sort of things. Right. Same thing with my ex-wife and my kids. And I mean, there's a couple of people that, did the same thing. And to Don Fox's exact point, there's been people that I've ran across over the years, and the minute you see them in my head, I'm like, fuck, man, I owe that person a conversation. And there's a couple of people I've said, I owe you a conversation. You got a minute? Because they're looking at me like, so what's up with you type of thing,
Yeah, right.
And I'm like,
hey, you're still breathing. What the fuck?
and at that point, I'm just like, man, I ain't going to mince fucking words anymore. This is the opportunity. Let's get this shit done, and thankfully, and I've heard, I again, can't think of an exact story, but I know there's plenty of people that get doors slammed, phones hung up on them, words said to them, all those sort of things. But the point of the amends is not that. It's not to get the reaction, it's to do the job, right? Or do that action.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and And like everything else, we can't do it on our time. We can't do it. We can't be impatient. I've got to get this done. No, you fucking don't. You got you got to be ready. And when the other person's ready, and yeah, when the time is right, it will happen if it's supposed to happen.
Right.
Bottom line, yeah, getting those doors slammed. Clearly, you're forcing something. You're trying to do something to make yourself feel better, and that's not the fucking point.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was hard though. The one thing I will say is that anyone that I had any sort of conversation with at any point, even if it wasn't a, and I'll use air quotes here, formal, conversation, I tried really hard, and I'm sure that somebody had suggested this. I tried really hard to not say the words "I'm sorry." I tried really hard not to do that because, and again, I've said this before, but it's such a poignant thing that that my ex-wife, my son's mom, said to me. She used to, because I used to always say sorry to her every time I'd fuck up or piss her off or, and then she's like, "You're always saying sorry. You're always saying sorry." And in my head, I'm like, well, fuck it. I won't say anything then, But the point was, and then finally she just said it to me. She's like, sorry is for like when things like spilling your milk. If you spill somebody's milk, you say you're sorry. She's like, sorry is not for the things that you do.
Right.
And I only laugh now because it makes so much fucking sense, of course.
Right. Of course.
But yeah, at the time she said that, I was just like, I'm like, fine, what the fuck, man? Whatever, man. But yeah, I just again, I thought I know I always know I don't always know, but I usually have a fairly decent idea of where your mindset is on certain things. But I just thought that'd be a good thing to kind of touch base on. So.
Yeah, and I like that you said, whenever you were making your amends, you tried not to say you were sorry. Because, just like our use of alcohol and drugs, we've abused the privilege, and we can't have that privilege anymore.
Right.
And it goes for saying, I'm sorry. We said it so much, and it didn't mean anything. We have lost the privilege to use that because it doesn't mean anything anymore because we fucking ruined it.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I know I did because I mean all the time, it's that's the other thing too. It's the words meant nothing because to your exact point, we abused them because we never backed it up with anything. Like exactly what you were just talking about at the beginning with the living amends is showing people that we're different, not telling people something.
Right.
It's literally walking the walk rather than saying here. That can even go back to your reading. That you were talking about, the person quoting all this shit. But I mean, hey, all that stuff is great, but are you living it? And
are you doing it?
Exactly. And, it just made me think about it that anyone who's listened to us for any amount of time, and I think it's been, well, who knows? We talk about the big book and 12 and 12 and things like that enough. There's been plenty of times when, we couldn't even find the fucking promises a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you, Google.
Right. I literally, my big book is 2 arm lengths away from me. I had my big book in my hand and I couldn't find the promises.
Well, yeah, right. Well, and chapter and verse shit.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what page anything is on.
Well, and the only reason that I know that how it works is chapter 5 is because when there was the meeting that I was the meeting that I went to in Mequon that I ended up being the Friday meeting I used to read it at, doesn't matter. But every week for probably, it might have even been 2 years, I would always volunteer. And then the guy, Tom, that ran the meeting, he just always knew and nobody else ever said anything. They knew that I was going to read how it works. And that's how I'd started off. I'm like, okay, this is from chapter 5, how it works.
Right. Right.
And that's the only reason that I know what chapter it is.
Yeah. Took you 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
to grind it in your head.
And it took me 3.5 years to figure out that the 10 step says when we are wrong. I told you about that, didn't I?
It's not ringing a bell.
I was sitting in a discussion meeting in Madison. So after I moved back to Wisconsin, you figure at that point, at an absolute minimum, and I know it was longer. It was longer than it wasn't the first time I'd been there. So I'm thinking 3.5 years, right? We're sitting in the meeting, and I remember looking where I was sitting at one of the tables. I had them set up in a square, and somebody started. I don't know. We were talking about whatever, and then I don't know, step 10 came up, and the person said that he goes, "That's one of the most important things that his sponsor had pointed out when he first got sober. It's not a question of if, it's when. It says so right in step 10, and the steps are right up on the wall." I looked up there, and I'm like, "Motherfucker, when?" Huh.
There it is.
And again, I was fucking 3.5 years sober.
Right.
So, and how many times do you think at that point that I had either read the steps of the meeting, heard the steps of the meeting, talked about the steps?
Sure.
I mean, but when? I didn't know when.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Talk about the mechanical stuff, man.
Right.
Just going through the motions. Oh shit. Right. I missed that word for 3.5 years.
And that now is one of the most mind-blowing parts of it. That's like the most important part of that step to me now, is just that, you understanding. It was a realization. It was almost an epiphany for me to realize that it's already said. I'm going to be wrong. What do I do about it then? I don't have to worry about. Right. I don't have to worry about if this happens. I can prepare for when it happens, and I know how to. I know how to act. I know how to shut my mouth and make things right. Because it's going to happen.
Yep, it absolutely is.
So the other thing that I made a note of here, and I actually just pulled it up on my computer while we were talking, we got an email from somebody which I thought was kind of nice, and I just wanted to read part of it real quick. And the guy's name is Gary, and just had basically just emailed out of the blue. But first of all, his subject line was "Great podcast. You both fucking rock."
Yeah.
And I read that, and I'm like,
well, thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Gary. Seriously, I read that, and I was just like, that's kind of fun. But
that is.
First paragraph opens as, "I'm sure you guys get a ton of emails," which we don't. But so I wanted to add mine to your inbox. "I've been listening to your podcast for a couple of months now, and I just love both of you. It's like having a meeting before my meeting. I usually listen to your podcast on my way to the meetings I attend weekly. I love that it's real and raw in how you two work together." And that was just the beginning of it. But I thought, first of all, it was great. And then he was said he's toying with the idea of starting a podcast, and was asking some questions. And, he'd say, "Hey, if you got time, would you want to do a Zoom meeting, have answer some questions?" I was just honest with him. I'm like, man, I said, I got work. I got this podcast. I got this web store I'm working on. I said, I got my mom shit we're still trying. I'm like, my time is limited, but here we go. Ask me questions. I'll answer them. So we've thrown back and forth a few emails, and introduced it to Anchor, and he asked a lot of questions. So I helped him the best I could, but I'm like, man, and he understood. I just said, I don't have time to get on a Zoom meeting right now. It's just my head doesn't have the space right at the moment.
Right.
But yeah, it's just it's been a little while since we've gotten, and we don't, for anyone out there, if you have anything you want to share with us, feel free. I mean, we read all of it. Whether it's a Facebook message, if it's an email, whatever the deal is. This one I actually didn't forward to Mike, because I thought it'd be fun to at least read this. Obviously when we recorded an episode, but and the rest of it was just stuff about the podcast that he was asking about actually starting one. So, but anytime we get emails, and I mean, how many emails do I forward to you? On things that we get. So
yeah, not many.
But even I do. If we got something going on, then I'll obviously forward it to you. But so yeah, we don't get a ton of emails or anything like that. But yeah, if anyone's got anything they want to share, by all means, we're all ears, if that's how we want to put that. So
we're listening, Seattle.
Oh, let's see here. I'm just trying to look at. I wrote down a thing about talking about. Clearly, this was before the 1st of January. About talking about each step at the beginning of each month, but we're almost at the end of the month, so I don't know that we necessarily need to do that. Although the first step is the most important one, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the only one we have to do perfectly.
Okay, well, you know what? Actually, so we've said that like 1,000 times, I'm sure. So just on that note, explain what you mean about the fact that we have to do the first one perfectly.
Well, I don't mean it. It's in the 12 and 12. Bill Wilson meant it. But Yeah, that it's in the 12 and 12. It is the only step that we have to do perfectly. We are powerless over the substance and our life is unmanageable. And we've always got to remember that, and we've got to believe it. Again, to use the vernacular, I'm thoroughly convinced I am powerless over the substances. And the second part of that step, my life is unmanageable. And I've said it before, and I will always say it. The second part of that step is just as important as the first part. And neither one of them changes for me ever. I am always going to be powerless over the substance, and my life will always be unmanageable. And I have to remember that every day, because I wake up in my big old house and my big old bed, and I look around and I go, shit, things are pretty good. I got this. No, I don't. My life is unmanageable. The reason I wake up in this big house and my big bed is because I allow the program and the principles to run my life. My life is unmanageable. What manages my life is this program. And as long as I remember that and I allow that to happen, then I have all this cool shit and that peace and that serenity that I'm promised. The minute I think I'm managing anything, I'm fucked.
Right.
So there.
I do. I always love that when you end certain things with "so there" or "okay, I'm done."
Yep. I'm
done with that one
because there's nothing else to fucking say.
Right. And I mean, you're exactly right. And we've talked about this before, but I mean, I say it just a little bit differently, but I feel the same way. I'm just with the unmanageability part. I always just say, without you, being that I was saying, I read it in my prayers. I'm powerless over alcohol. I even say drugs, even though I haven't used drugs, but I'm powerless over alcohol and drugs. And without you, meaning my higher power, which again means the program, my life is unmanageable. And because if I don't have that, it is unmanageable. But the funny part, and it's and I know you'll remember this, but when I think it was Chicken Dan that had said it, that and we were in group and we were, gosh, probably I would say first week, maybe even second week, something like that. And he was there obviously talking about their first step. And he said, you may not believe right now, and he's talking to a group of, 25, 30 guys, that your life is unmanageable. But he said, you're in the Keating Center, though. Or no, he said you may not believe that you're powerless over alcohol. I'm sorry, fuck that up. But he said you're in the Keating Center, so your life is unmanageable.
Right.
and it's one of those things where even at that young point of my sobriety career, I was just like, I couldn't really argue with that logic,
Nope.
So yeah, and I didn't.
Clearly, something's not right.
And I mean, honestly, I didn't think or know or anything. I had no conception or thought whatsoever of whether or not I was powerless over alcohol at that point. I didn't know. It wasn't like, no, I'm not. Yes, I am. Maybe I am. I just had no thought. But yeah, when he said, if you're sitting here in the Keating Center, your life is unmanageable. I'm like, yeah, that's, I can't really argue with that one. I really wanted to, because I was certainly more of an arguer at that point than I am now. But yeah, certainly wasn't something I could argue with too much.
Nope, can't muster up that one.
But and then,
yeah, you're right, man.
And then, I mean, how many people have we known when it comes to and even taking out the fact that, let's say that, and I know we have listeners and people that follow us that, don't necessarily go by the 12 steps of the program. But, I think that first step, even if you take out the fact that if you're out there and you've found that you have some sort of problem with alcohol and you're trying to get sober, I think if you took that step out of its context, and I only mean that if you took it out of the fact that it's part of the 12 steps of an AA program and just read that, powerless over alcohol and your life's unmanageable, I believe that at some point pretty quickly, anyone's going to be able, if you've got a problem with alcohol, you're going to be able to answer that honestly and be like, yeah, that's pretty much right.
Yeah, right.
And again, that's the first step is the only one that mentions the word alcohol, if I remember correctly, right?
I believe so.
But yeah, so like I said, I wrote that down at one point, that figuring we should talk about, I don't know, this might be fun to talk about steps, but we're doing the readings too, so maybe we can do that, kind of fit that in there.
Right.
I'm trying to think here. I mean, I've got a couple of I don't think I have anything super out of the ordinary. You know what? There's one on here that I thought was kind of interesting. So
Hmm.
once again, who knows where I heard this from, but what I wrote down was be remembered for your recovery, not for your addiction. Okay, I think
Hmm.
both you and I can probably agree that that's a fair statement.
Yeah, that's a lofty
It
goal.
is.
Absolutely.
And I think we clearly know what that means. I wrote that down also. But
Hmm.
how do we get there? And maybe you just put that in perfect terms that it's a lofty goal. So how do we get to that
Mm.
point? What do you think anyone gets to the point where you're remembered more for your recovery than your addiction?
Time.
I heard that. I heard time matters. That's what I heard.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's well, balancing the scales. Have I done more good than bad? I'm still working on
Right.
that. Um, yeah, I mean that's how you get there. Yeah, rebalance that scale. Hopefully by the time I'm done with this, whatever this is, life, um, I I will have done more good things than bad things. Again, still working on it, man, because I did a lot of bad shit.
Right.
Uh, yeah, and I think I'd like to think if I drop dead today, the past 12 plus years have made a difference, put a nice big dent in that bag of shit that I carried around for so
Right.
long. Uh, yeah, I'd like to think that. I'd like to think at this point in my recovery that's what I'll be remembered for more than my addiction. Not everybody, but hey, can't please
Right.
everybody. Don't want to.
It's too goddamn hard. Well, I remember people, some of the old timers and stuff that we used
Mm-hmm.
to hear speak and things like that. Guys that got to the point where they were sober longer than they had drank, which
Mm-hmm.
clearly I haven't hit that point yet. I mean, I drank for
Right.
longer than 12 years and 9 months, so haven't
Mm-hmm.
quite hit that. But I kind of look at little milestones. I mean, I've like you said, that the place that you had lived in longer than any other place. But you've been sober longer than you've
Mm.
lived any place. I've been sober longer
Right.
than. You know what? Give it two more years. I'll have been sober longer than both my marriages combined.
Nice.
I just thought about that. I'm like, I've been longer than I was married,
Mm-hmm.
sober longer than I was married. But yeah,
Right.
it was like seven. Oh yeah, 7 and 8. So yeah, I got to get another couple years under my belt. But
All
but
right.
so you think about it that way. Think about my son. I mean, I've been sober for more than half his life. I mean, things
Mm-hmm.
like that are important. I mean, there are things I
Mm-hmm.
look at, but and I know we've always talked about that. Obviously, time matters, but it matters. I think not even just as much more. What have we done with that time, right? We could still have been,
Right. Oh
raging
yeah.
fucking assholes, worse than what we are.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, what's the phrase that we always heard? He didn't change anything but his
Right.
breath.
Yep.
Yeah. 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 Thankfully, hopefully I've changed more than just my
Yeah.
breath.
I mean, I would think so.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
easiest thing to take a look at sometimes is the people around us, and we talked about
Mm-hmm.
the family members and friends and that sort of thing,
Right.
and one of the biggest ones still to me is the fact of like your relationship with mom, the fact that you had got to
Mm-hmm.
build that type of relationship with her from scratch from
Yeah.
when you first got sober. I mean, that's pretty fucking cool, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
It is.
But so you didn't have any, yeah, you
Yeah.
didn't have any shit to amend for with her, but you still had to build a
Right.
whole new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I look at your daughter and your granddaughter, and just all the other people in your
Mm-hmm.
life, and same thing on my end. And I don't know. It was one of those things where I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, of course, we hope it's a lofty. You said lofty goal, right?
I did.
which I agree with that. I think it's an extremely lofty goal, but and then that goes back to my competitiveness and my well, fine, fuck it. I'm gonna stay sober and be fucking nice to people so
Mm-hmm.
they remember me the right way. Damn
That's right.
it.
It comes back to
Right.
spite. I'll show you fuckers.
I'll show you fuckers how good I can be, and then you won't have a choice.
That's
You won't have a
right.
choice.
You'll have to remember me as a wonderful fucking human being.
Yeah, and you know what? I think on that note, I think we're going to end up. We can't get any better than that. That's almost a.
I don't think so.
I was going to say a mic drop moment, but all right. So one way or the other. I mean, we had a little bit of a glitch on the front end, but whatever, man. Hey, that's what makes this little thing that we do so much fun is the I don't know, having
Absolutely.
no fucking idea what's going to happen.
Yep.
So,
well, kind of
I
like
know,
life,
yeah.
man. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen, but we're going to keep showing up and doing what we can do.
Exactly. All right, brother. It is
Yep.
your turn.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. As always, be kind to each other, be good to each other, do something nice for somebody else. If you like what you heard, like us, give us some stars, subscribe, whatever, give that big thumbs up. However it is you acknowledge that we're here, we appreciate it. And as always, please, 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 fuck off. Then keep fucking off. Keep fucking off until you get to a gate with a sign on it saying you cannot fuck off past here. Climb over the gate, dream the impossible dream, and keep fucking off forever.
And you know what? I'm going to give you an A on that one. That was good.
Well,
I
thank
was
you.
listening ridiculously intently to how you were going to say sober, not mature. And you didn't pause. You didn't enunciate. Just sober, not mature. Just ran through it like a motherfucking boss.
You know what? I didn't even fucking think about it. There you go. There's the key,
Exactly.
kids. Don't think, just do.
All right, man. Well, I will talk to you soon, brother. I love you.
You will. I love you
All right,
too.
bye.
Bye.
As always, thank you for listening to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. To access all of our content and interact with us, please visit our website, SoberNotMature.com. Thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you soon.